Okay, let's bring in the US political analyst now, Aidan Smith. So yeah, they're all of a sudden moving things over to Kamala Harris. Didn't take very long, Aidan.
Definitely not. And, obviously, in any circumstance, when you have a new candidate for a party, the other side is obviously going to try and connect the unfavorable, unpopular, rather, aspects of the prior candidate's record to the new candidate. Needless to say, it's a lot easier when said person is the actual vice president. Obviously, we're a really polarized country, and it's entirely possible that this ends up being a horse race where Harris has a shot. Current polling does show, obviously, Trump with a lead, and I think that as it stands, he still is favored, but it will be really interesting to see the next few months.
I mean, politically, it's a tough one for the Democrats, is it not? I mean, you've got the history that Kamala Harris has. I mean, the first black woman on a ticket. I mean, if she's not on the ticket, does that isolate that base? Does that move that base somewhere else? I mean, they'd obviously be pretty upset about that.
I think so, and I think as it stands, in the past month, and it's something that I think is interesting, is that something for Harris obviously didn't do well in the 2020 primary. Something that a lot of reasons for people across the political spectrum are actually more impressed by her is that in the past month, since we've seen the controversy with Biden's terrible debate performance, the one thing we really have not really heard any leaks from Harris's camp, and I actually think that shows a great deal of discipline among her team, especially when you think 4 years back when campaign team was mainly California focused, and she didn't end up winning any primaries and dropped out before the actual Iowa caucus. I think, yeah, as it stands, I think Harris is in pretty much pole position to win the nomination. There was something about Gavin Newsom's team, or allies of him, rather, maybe he didn't sanction it, showing around polling to try and make the case for him as a nominee. But I think Obama is formally not endorsing, but Biden is already behind her, and so are the Clintons and a litany of other electeds.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing is looking at who will be her running mate.
One of the major stories too, I mean, she has the border failure, which is on her watch, but there's also been a lot of reporting from the amount of staff who have left Kamala Harris's office in recent months, even recent years, a very, very high turnover. Does that point to how fractured things are behind the scenes?
See, I think that it's interesting. I think for border issues especially, it's kind of interesting because obviously Trump was elected 8 years ago, and that's one of his most famous policies. It's kind of ubiquitous in terms of what we associate him with. In terms of public perception, Americans have actually shown, and I don't ideologically agree with it on my own end, but just objectively, we've seen a really sharp shift to the right on border issues, even in the past 4 years. And that's something where even among a lot of traditionally Democratic voters, so I think that Biden's basically decision to, I saw this in a WAPO article about how some Democrats are concerned that Biden's kind of decision to informally deputize Harris on border issues in 2021 could end up harming her election, since right now, one of the things for Democrats that is a winner is something like, say, abortion rights, or stuff like January 6th is generally favorable to Dems, and like border stuff is not, like you said. I think in terms of staff turnover, yeah, I mean, in America especially, I remember growing up and seeing a lot of like famous articles about members of Congress with high staff turnover, obviously something that does not look good in any context. I think in this, it will definitely, I feel like in this context, as long as there's comparatively little staff turnover in the actual campaign, that probably won't be that big of an issue. There's a separation between formal staff of an office holder and their campaign staff. But yeah, I mean, if there's something where we have like an abrupt transition of campaign managers in the next few months, for example, I think that could definitely be more appreciative of an issue.